Beneath the silver hush of a Los Angeles midnight, Quinn returned like a ghost who no longer belonged to the city she once conquered. The world she left behind had moved on. Eric was fragile. The Forresters had buried her name in scandal, and Luna Nozawa had risen from nowhere to become the bright new muse of the fashion empire. To outsiders, Luna was merely a rising star, a burst of youth and light, but in Quinn's eyes, she was a storm wrapped in silk, a threat not just to legacy, but to memory itself. Quinn's absence had erased her from the story, and Luna's existence ensured she would never be written back in. The realization festered like an untreated wound, and by the time Quinn set foot in Los Angeles again, she had already decided that Luna's disappearance would be the first step toward her own rebirth. But Quinn was no longer the reckless woman who once burned everything she touched. She had learned that power demanded partnership, and manipulation required mirrors, someone equally ruthless to share the sin. That was why she sought out Sheila Carter. Their reunion took place in a forgotten corner of the city, in a dive bar where neither of their names held value. Sheila's eyes gleamed with the thrill of recognition, the kind that only predators reserve for one another. Quinn made no pretense of small talk. She came with an offer. Luna must disappear, completely, permanently, and in exchange, Quinn would grant Sheila access to the one world that had forever rejected her, the House of Forrester. Through Quinn, Sheila could finally influence the family that had humiliated her, the same way Quinn planned to regain her place by Eric's side. It was not affection that guided her, it was the aching need to rewrite her own ending before death, or time wrote it for her. Sheila listened in silence, her expression unreadable until it split into a slow, knowing smile. She had spent decades weaving destruction into the Forrester fabric, but this was different. Quinn wasn't offering chaos for sport, she was offering collaboration for revenge. Sheila agreed, on one condition. Quinn would not back down when it came time to watch. Quinn hesitated but nodded, believing she could bear witness to anything as long as it meant redemption in Eric's eyes. In truth, she underestimated the cost of seeing what she once was reflected so mercilessly in another. The plan unfolded with cruel precision. Using her uncanny knowledge of manipulation, Sheila crafted a message in Bill Spencer's voice, desperate and pleading, sent directly to Luna's phone. "Meet me at the beach house." It read, "I need you. It's urgent." Luna, naive in her trust and vulnerable in her youth, obeyed without question. The ocean at night was a mirror of her own confusion, dark, shifting, infinite. When she stepped onto the sand, the air felt heavy, thick with something unspoken. She called out for Bill, her voice breaking against the wind, but only silence answered. And then, from the shadows, Quinn emerged. For a heartbeat, Luna was simply startled. She saw in Quinn an echo of stories she'd heard: danger, scandal, redemption twisted into tragedy. "What are you doing here?" she might have asked if not for the dread tightening her throat. Behind Quinn, another figure materialized, calm and cold: Sheila. The realization struck Luna too late. She was not meeting Bill. She was meeting fate. Quinn stood motionless, her heart splitting between purpose and panic. This was the moment she had built her entire return upon: the removal of Luna, the restoration of order. But as she looked at the young woman before her, trembling, terrified, she saw something painfully familiar. Luna's eyes were wide, like Wyatt's had been years ago when he discovered the depths of his mother's schemes, the betrayal she had woven under the pretense of love. That memory sliced through Quinn's composure like a blade. She remembered the sound of Wyatt's voice breaking, his face filled not with hatred but heartbreak. She remembered promising herself that she would never again become the kind of woman who traded souls for validation. Her grip on the illusion faltered. The sea roared louder, urging action, but her feet rooted in the sand. Sheila, impatient, saw weakness where there should have been resolve. "You can't back out now," her tone implied without words. And in that flicker of hesitation, something irreversible happened. Sheila's hand darted into her coat, fingers curling around the cold metal of a pistol Quinn had brought only as a prop of intimidation. Before Quinn could react, the shot rang out. One clean crack that split the night. Luna's body jolted backward, her scream swallowed by the crash of the tide. For an instant, the world froze. The sea seemed to hold its breath. Quinn stared, disbelieving, the gun smoke curling like ghostly fingers around Sheila's calm face. The enormity of what had just happened settled not as shock but as nausea. She had not pulled the trigger, but her silence, her plotting, her envy had made her complicit. Sheila looked at her, eyes glittering with perverse satisfaction. "Now you have your peace," she murmured. But peace was the last thing Quinn felt. As the waves dragged Luna's limp form toward the dark, Quinn's knees buckled. She wanted to scream, to confess, to run. But she did nothing. Sheila tossed the gun into the surf, where it vanished into the abyss. The two women stood side by side, one calm, one shattered, the moon illuminating them like two halves of the same sin. Quinn's reflection on the water looked warped, part monster, part victim. That night, she became both. In the days that followed, Los Angeles awoke to a new scandal. Luna Nozawa, Forrester's golden girl, had vanished without a trace. Rumors spread faster than truth ever could. She'd run away, she'd been kidnapped, she'd overdosed, she'd fallen into the sea. Every version had a sliver of plausibility, and that was precisely what made it impossible to prove otherwise. Sheila relished the chaos. For her, destruction was art. For Quinn, it was damnation. Quinn returned to Eric's side as planned, cloaked in the guise of a savior who had found clarity after years of solitude. She played the part perfectly. Gentle, attentive, reformed. Eric, weakened but kind, welcomed her presence, believing her sincerity. But guilt has a scent that even love cannot mask. Every time she adjusted his pillow or brushed his hair back, she felt Luna's ghost watching, felt the saltwater chill of that night clawing at her chest. She tried to tell herself it was mercy, that Luna's disappearance was a necessary evil to protect the Forresters from scandal. Yet the lie dissolved faster than the tide could erase footprints. Sheila, meanwhile, began to cash in on the bargain. With Quinn as her unknowing shield, she insinuated herself into Forrester business through back channels, whispering offers, planting stories, corrupting the same institution she had once tried to destroy. Quinn saw it happening but was trapped. To expose Sheila would be to expose herself. To stay silent was to become her. It was a torment that gnawed at her until sleep became impossible. The true horror, however, began when reports surfaced that Luna's body had not been recovered. That revelation turned guilt into terror. Quinn began to imagine Luna alive somewhere, broken but breathing, waiting to return, not for revenge, but for truth. The idea consumed her. She saw Luna in mirrors, in reflections of store windows, in every ripple of water. Her dreams replayed the gunshot, but the shooter's hand changed each time. Sometimes it was Sheila's, sometimes her own. Reality blurred until even she wasn't sure what her role had been. Sheila noticed the unraveling and began to tighten her grip. She reminded Quinn of their shared secret, their shared survival. "If one of us goes down," she warned, "we both do." And Quinn believed her. Yet somewhere beneath the fear, a spark of conscience began to flicker. For the first time in years, she wanted to tell the truth, not for redemption but for release. She fantasized about walking into the police station, confessing everything, and watching the world finally stop spinning. But every time she tried, she saw Eric's fragile face and knew that the truth would destroy him faster than any disease. So she remained silent, a prisoner of her own making, haunted by two ghosts, the woman she once was and the girl she might have killed. The press called Luna's case a tragedy. The Forresters called it a mystery, but Quinn knew it was a mirror. The closer she looked into it, the less human she appeared. Weeks later, fate began its cruel circle again. A report surfaced of a young woman seen near the Malibu coast, disoriented, alive, and carrying a single name on her lips: Quinn. The police dismissed it as rumor, but for Quinn, it was enough to tear open the fragile shell of denial she had built. She confronted Sheila, demanding to know the truth. Had Luna survived? Had Sheila staged her death to manipulate her? Sheila's laughter was answer enough, low, cold, triumphant. "Does it matter?" she said. "You already think you did it. That's the only truth that counts." From that moment, Quinn's descent accelerated. She began keeping notes, writing down fragments of memory, trying to reconstruct that night. The sound of the gun, the look in Luna's eyes, the recoil of guilt, it all played on an endless loop. Somewhere deep inside, a seed of defiance began to grow. If Luna was alive, Quinn would find her. If she was dead, Quinn would confess. Either way, she would no longer be a puppet in Sheila's play. Her chance came sooner than expected. A private investigator hired by R.J. Forrester found traces of a struggle near the beach, alongside a fragment of a broken bracelet, a bracelet Quinn remembered seeing on Luna's wrist that night. The discovery reignited media attention and forced Sheila into panic. For the first time, Quinn saw fear in the other woman's eyes. Fear was leverage, and leverage was freedom. Quinn met Sheila one final time at the same beach where their sin began. The ocean was wild that night, churning with stormlight and memory. Quinn carried a recorder hidden in her coat pocket, her voice calm as she coaxed Sheila into confession. It wasn't difficult. Sheila loved the sound of her own villainy. She admitted to pulling the trigger, to framing the narrative, to binding Quinn through guilt. It was all there, every word, every damning truth. But Sheila, cunning as ever, noticed the shift in Quinn's gaze before it was too late. "You're recording me," she hissed, lunging forward. They struggled, two women bound by hatred and history, until Quinn shoved her back into the surf. For a moment, it seemed as if the sea itself claimed justice. By dawn, only one woman walked away from the shore. Whether it was Quinn or Sheila, no one could say. The waves erased everything, leaving only mystery and myth in their place. Days later, a file containing Sheila's confession arrived anonymously at the LAPD. Alongside it was a simple note. For Eric. For Luna. For peace. In the end, Quinn's redemption was neither pure nor complete. Eric never knew the full truth, and the world never discovered who fired the gun that night. But somewhere along the coastline, where guilt and tide meet, Quinn's silhouette lingers, a woman haunted not by her crimes, but by her awakening. She had learned too late that the darkest battles are not fought with weapons, but with memory, and that forgiveness, once sought through destruction, can only ever be earned through confession. And so the legend remained. The night the ocean kept a secret, the night Luna's scream was swallowed by waves, and the night Quinn Forrester faced the reflection of everything she had become, and chose, finally, to let it drown. Under the dim veil of Los Angeles twilight, Quinn's return was not the triumphant arrival of a woman seeking redemption, but the quiet infiltration of a shadow determined to reclaim what she believed had been stolen from her. The city she once ruled through charm and steel now pulsed with unfamiliar rhythms, younger faces, and louder ambitions. She had watched from afar as names like Luna Nozawa began to circulate through the Forrester corridors, names that whispered change, disruption, and youth. But for Quinn, those whispers were venom. They represented the decay of everything she had once built, everything she had bled to preserve. Luna was not just another upstart. She was the embodiment of chaos wearing the mask of innocence, and in Quinn's mind, chaos was a luxury only the strong could afford to eliminate. The decision to return wasn't impulsive, it was strategic. Weeks of observation turned into patterns, and patterns became obsession. Quinn learned Luna's routines, the time she left the Forrester offices, the cafes she lingered at with RJ, and finally, the nights she disappeared into the coastal solitude of Bill Spencer's beach house. The irony was not lost on Quinn. Bill, the man who once tormented her with his arrogance, now opened his home to the very girl who threatened the legacy she intended to restore. To Quinn, it was fate's invitation to finish what time and pride had left incomplete. so she accepted it. Her first move was subtle. Disguised in an oversized coat and sunglasses, she followed Luna's car down the winding coastal road, her heart steady, her eyes unblinking. When Luna stopped to pick up a coffee near Malibu Pier, Quinn made her presence known, brushing past with calculated grace, letting a faint perfume linger in the air, one that Eric had once said reminded him of calm before a storm. Luna turned, startled by the familiarity of the scent, and for a moment, their eyes met. Quinn smiled, soft, deliberate, disarming. It was a look designed to confuse, to invite trust while concealing threat. That was Quinn's art, to destroy without appearing monstrous. Over the next days, their coincidental encounters multiplied. A shared yoga class, a boutique fitting, a silent nod in an elevator. Each moment tightened the invisible thread Quinn wove around Luna's unsuspecting world. She learned about Luna's insecurities, her struggle to balance heritage with ambition, her fear of never being accepted by the Foresters. And that was where Quinn saw her opening. Luna was not strong. She was fragile, intoxicated by approval and terrified of scandal, the very combination that Quinn had long mastered to manipulate others. But the irony was cruel. Quinn did not merely despise Luna, she envied her. Luna's youth, her unearned charm, her ability to stir chaos without even meaning to, all the things that once defined Quinn herself now belonged to someone else. And that envy, festering beneath her composed exterior, twisted into something more dangerous than hatred, the conviction that eliminating Luna was both justice and renewal. When night descended upon Bill's beach house, the ocean seemed complicit. The tide murmured against the rocks, the horizon swallowing the last sliver of daylight. Luna stood outside, barefoot in the sand, her white dress fluttering against the wind. Quinn watched from the dunes, the metallic weight of the pistol hidden beneath her shawl. It was supposed to be simple, a single act, quick and clean, erasing a problem that had never belonged in her world. Yet as she approached, every footstep seemed to echo with ghosts. She thought of Eric, frail, gasping for breath, his eyes dimmed, but still searching for the woman he once called Muse. Quinn told herself this was for him, that by removing Luna, she was protecting what little remained of his legacy. She would return as the woman who avenged the family, the one who saved the Foresters from a scandal that could have destroyed them. It was the perfect illusion, one that could restore her power, her pride, perhaps even her place beside Eric's hospital bed. But illusions demand sacrifice, and that night, it came with the sound of a single gunshot. The bullet tore through the night like lightning splitting the sea. Luna fell, her body folding into the sand, the waves rushing forward as if to cradle her. Quinn stood still, her breath sharp, her hands trembling not from fear but from the strange calm that followed. The gun slipped from her grip, sinking into the salt water as if it, too, wished to vanish from the world. For a fleeting moment, Quinn felt omnipotent. She had rewritten fate, restored order, and silenced chaos. She believed she had erased Luna Nozawa. Yet the ocean never keeps secrets. As she drove away, the wind carried echoes of the waves colliding with something heavy, something that refused to stay buried. That sound lingered in her mind long after she reached her hotel, an echo that gnawed at the edges of her sanity. Days later, news began to spread. Luna's disappearance was reported, but no body had been found. Bill's mansion became a crime scene draped in flashing lights and speculation. RJ was inconsolable, Steffi suspicious, and Eric, poor, fading Eric, was told nothing. Quinn visited him under the pretense of concern, her tears real but rooted in guilt, not grief. As she sat beside his hospital bed, she rehearsed her narrative, the returning guardian, the reformed lover, the woman who had found purpose again. But behind every word, her mind replayed the beach, the glimmer of the moon on Luna's eyes, the recoil of the gun, the impossible silence afterward. Her guilt became hallucination. Every sound reminded her of the sea. Every reflection showed Luna's face. Even Eric's frail hand clutching hers felt like accusation rather than affection. The illusion of control began to fracture. She started visiting the beach again, drawn to the scene of her crime like a penitent returning to the altar of her sin. There, she imagined Luna's voice whispering through the wind, accusing her, mocking her, warning her that the sea never forgets. Each visit left Quinn more undone, more desperate to convince herself that it was justified. But in the quiet, she knew it wasn't justice she sought, it was resurrection. She had tried to kill the part of herself that feared being forgotten, and Luna had merely been the vessel. The tragedy was that Quinn's weapon had not silenced the threat, it had only amplified her descent. Her paranoia grew until even Eric's gentle gratitude for her return felt like condemnation. When he looked at her, she no longer saw love. She saw Luna reflected in his eyes, alive in rumor, resurrected in guilt. Because deep down, Quinn suspected the truth she could not bear to confirm. Luna might not be dead. The sea had claimed the bullet, the weapon, and perhaps even the evidence, but not the soul of the woman she tried to erase. And so, Quinn's world collapsed inward. She became her own prisoner, trapped between the illusion of redemption and the shadow of a crime that refused to fade. Every time she touched Eric's hand, she imagined it slick with seawater. Every night, the sound of the waves beneath her hotel window became the pulse of her punishment. She had come to Los Angeles to reclaim her life, but instead, she had bound herself to the ghost of a girl who refused to die quietly. In the end, Quinn's story was not one of victory but of erosion, like the cliffs of Malibu crumbling under relentless tide. She had believed that by silencing Luna, she could resurrect herself. Instead, she discovered that some storms, once unleashed, never end. They simply change form. And somewhere beneath the same waves that once hid her crime, something waited, something that knew her name, her sin, and her secret heartbeat of fear.